Who is someone to tell anyone else what objectivity should look like for them? Objectivity is about aspiring to distortion-free decision-making and the distortion-free interpretation of circumstances and evidence tied to events. It's not settling for half-baked truths, and it's not settling for convenience. It's not ignoring the facts, but it's also not cherry-picking those facts or distorting them. That's why being able to recognize bias and the obstacles that biases create and how those obstacles impede objectivity, that's critical information to have and to live by in order to make the best decisions possible for ourselves and for others. Objectivity is what empowers us to be able to evaluate and identify the best available path of action. It's then up to us to make a choice, to either choose that best available path or choose a different path of action. Ultimately, the choice is ours to make, just like the impacts or consequences from that decision are ours to own. We made the decision, but did we make that decision with a clear mind? Did we make that decision free from bias? Doing what's right, that's usually how we characterize good decision-making. Doing what's right is our metaphoric North Star, because when a decision is evaluated objectively, the best path of action is usually aligned with the right thing to do in those circumstances. In fact, to clarify, it's only when a decision is evaluated objectively is it even possible to have the best choice, the best path of action, consistently available to us for consideration. Consistent focus on objectivity can bring with it awareness and perspective, both of which provide us the ability to see options not considered before, and to value those options, weighing potential paths of action appropriately. Bias and delusion are both very real in the professional space as well. Companies have conspiracy theories of their own over the competition and what innovation they may have in the works. There may be widespread delusion about the state of a company's finances, or the progress being made on a merger. These are usually half-baked truths mixed with lots and lots of gossip and conjecture. But they do exist in most modern corporations, especially those with a global standing. In corporate environments, corporate leaders are responsible for bringing objectivity to their decision-making, to look at all of the options, and to not overvalue nor undervalue one option from another. If these same leaders are incapable of recognizing and setting aside bias when it comes to making decisions, then how can they be trusted to make the best decision from the available options? That's a huge asset, that characteristic of objectivity and the ability to use it with purpose. Smart companies know that leadership like that is hard to come by. Again, all of us have biases, to one degree or another, that dictate our behavior. Recognizing bias and not giving it the power to impact our decision-making and our behavior, this cannot simply be done overnight. It takes effort and it takes time. That's why sometimes bias wins, because objectivity often takes more effort than it does to just fall back on those biases that have attached themselves to our perspective, distorting the way we see ourselves and distorting the way we see the world. The great news, though, is that we don't have to live like that if we don't want to. It's a series of choices, but ones that we get to make. The resolve and growth we pick up along the way just moves us that much closer to an even better version of ourselves. Objectivity is directly tied to growth. If we can't look at ourselves objectively, then how can we know in which direction we even want to grow? How do we know that what we're chasing now, what we aspire to, is even close to what we actually want to be doing? What if what we prefer is a life that's more simplified, but we keep making it more and more cluttered? What if what we really want is a little more solitude, but we keep jumping in and out of relationships? How do we even know if what we think we want is really what we want after all? Objectivity is both the aim and the execution. It allows for the forming of a plan, and then it's used again to execute the plan. Then it's used again to assess ourselves on the execution of that plan. Objectivity is used again and again within all three phases: planning, execution, and assessment. Why would we ever want to damage such an important tool? Objectivity is meant to be used to conceptualize a plan. It's meant to be used to assess our execution of a plan. And it's meant to be used to discover opportunities along the way that wouldn't have been realized otherwise. That's when the power of objectivity is realized, and that's the birth of objective empowerment. It's the moment when we realize just how critical objectivity is, and just how disastrous bias is. We recognize bias, and we can see right through its intentions while staying on course, unaffected, unimpeded by its pull. Now take a step back and look at that process of recognition and absence of influence that we just outlined. That's a form of self-control right there. That's a building block for future happiness and growth. That's something meaningful.